to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. Joining me today is from our EBC Vietnam Bureau. Hello, Eliana.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon. I'm Eliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, giving you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, the United States announced sanctions against two more leaders of Myanmar's junta and warned of further action as hundreds of thousands defiantly rallied for the restoration of the nation's democracy.
Malacanang said President Duterte has refused to place the entire Philippines under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine until after the government kicks off its vaccination drive.
Malaysia received its first shipment of vaccines Sunday morning with initial doses ready to be handed by the middle of the week.
A massive cleanup operation is underway in the Indonesian city of Bektai on the eastern border of Jakarta after deadly flood submerged part of the Indonesian capital.
The United States announced sanctions against two more leaders of Myanmar's junta and warned of further action as hundreds of thousands defiantly rallied for the restoration of the nation's democracy. The United States said it was blocking any U.S. property and suspending the entry into the country of two members of the newly ruling State Administrative Council, General Mang Mau Kiao, who commands the Air Force, and Lieutenant General Mo Mien Tun. The junta has warned it's willing to use lethal force to crush the increasingly large demonstrations after protesters were shot dead over the weekend. The U.S. has already imposed sanctions on other top figures, including Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, the military chief and new ruler of the country.
Authorities against the Burmese people, including peaceful protesters, and we urge the Burmese military to exercise restraint. Over the weekend, millions of Burmese took to the streets to show the strength of their will and the power of their collective voice. We stand with the people of Burma. We call on the Burmese military to act peacefully and with respect for the rule of law and human rights, including the freedoms of expression and peaceful assembly. We stand with the people of Burma and support the freedom of peaceful assembly, including to protest peacefully in support of the democratically elected government.
The announcement comes hours after the European Union also approved sanctions on Myanmar's military, stepping up international pressure over the February 1 coup in which the generals toppled Democratic leader Aung San Suu Kyi.
Today we have decided a set of targeted measures with ministers in response to these events. When we took the political agreement to apply sanctions targeting the military responsible for the coup and the economic interest. All direct financial support from our development assistance to the government reform programs is withheld.
The EU said it will continue to provide humanitarian assistance and will seek to avoid measures that could adversely affect the people of Myanmar, especially those people who are in the most vulnerable circumstances.
Meanwhile, UN Chief Antonio Guterres condemned the brutal force used by those behind Myanmar's coup and urged the military to immediately halt the repression and release prisoners. Take a look.
Today, I call on the Myanmar military to stop the repression immediately, release the prisoners and the violence, respect human rights and the will of the people expressed in recent elections.
Since the army takeover, 640 people have been detained, according to the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners Monitoring Group. And among those targeted have been railway workers, civil servants, and bank staff who have walked off their jobs as part of the anti-coup campaign. Meanwhile, the UN chief also welcomed a resolution passed by the Rights Council earlier this month during a special session dedicated to the crisis in Myanmar, demanding the immediate release of Aung San Suu Kyi. And that resolution was adopted without a vote by the 47-member council, but several countries, including traditional allies of Myanmar's military, China and Russia, disassociated themselves from the consensus.
Now let's go over to Vietnam, where Vietnamese COVID-19 vaccines proven effective against new variants will be reported by our EBC Vietnam Bureau, Ralph Wandolph Ampai. Hello, Ralph.
Good afternoon, Eliana, and to all of who's watching us today. Here's the latest here in Vietnam. Vietnamese COVID-19 vaccines have proved effective in trials and appear to work well against new variants of the virus. Mr. Quang, the head of the National Program on Vaccine Development, says that among the COVID-19 vaccines under development in Vietnam, the Nanokovax Vaccine of the Nanogen company has completed its first trial phase on humans. After 2 injections using different doses, 60 volunteers showed no serious health problems. They showed immunity after a maximum dose of 75 milligrams. The National Council of Ethics in Medical Research says the vaccine can enter its second human trial period because apparently it is safe and produces good immunity. Mr. Quang says 560 volunteers, 18 to 65 years old, will participate in the second phase and be injected with 50 milligrams or 75 milligram doses. The first injection of the second phase will be administered on Friday. Then in late March, the second injection will be administered and the results of the second phase will be announced a month later. The third phase of the trial will begin in early May when the Nanokovax vaccine will be injected in people at high risk, such as airport staff, airline crew members, and frontline healthcare workers. According to Mr. Quang Eliana, the Nanokovax vaccine is being produced with recombinant protein technology, which is relatively flexible for new variants of SARS-CoV-2 virus. The Nanogen company is working with research agencies to test the vaccines on new variants. So far, the test on the South African variant of the virus has produced good results. Vietnam is looking to import vaccines while accelerating the production of vaccines at home to ensure its vaccines supply. In other news, Vietnam will begin its COVID-19 vaccination program next month with frontline healthcare staff and the elderly in line for the first doses as the country tackles a new wave of coronavirus infections, the state media reported yesterday. The Southeast Asian country expects to receive 60 million doses this year, including 30 million under the WHO-led COVAX scheme, with the first batch of 204,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine due to arrive on February 28, which is just a few days from now. Refrigerators able to store vaccines at temperature of minus 86 to minus 40 degrees Celsius had been prepared in the country's 3 biggest cities of Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and Da Nang. The government said previously it was in talks with Russian and U.S. vaccine manufacturers on potential supply agreements, while it expects a homegrown vaccine to be ready for domestic inoculation by May. Late last month, Vietnam approved the AstraZeneca vaccine for emergency use days after the country detected the first locally transmitted cases in nearly 2 months. Vietnam has done mass testing and strict quarantining. Because of this, Vietnam managed to successfully contain the virus for months. However, a fresh outbreak has proved more difficult to stamp out. The country of 98 million people has recorded 71 new cases since the latest outbreak started last month. A total of 2,383 infections since cases were first detected a year ago. Vietnam has reported 35 deaths due to the virus. Back to you, Eliana.
All right, thank you for your updates there, Ralph. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too, Eliana. I'm Ralph Wandolph Ampai reporting from Thanh Hoa, Vietnam. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Ralph. President Duterte has thumbed down the proposal to resume face-to-face classes. He said he doesn't want to risk the lives of students and teachers. The national government is expected to kick off its vaccination drive this month with the arrival of initial doses of the vaccines. Let's listen in.
With regard to the conduct of face-to-face classes, please allow me to reiterate that the President has directed the Department of Education to put on hold plans to conduct face-to-face classes. The DepEd had earlier proposed the pilot testing of limited face-to-face classes in 1,904 schools from 126 school divisions in several areas, as the department and the government recognizes the challenges involved in learning modalities that have been adopted to follow or to allow our children to continue their education. However, the President believes that the safety and health of our children and all of those charged with their care and education is paramount. Hindi lang po kasi ang kapakanan ng mga bata ang pinag-uusapan po dito, kundi ang kapakanan ng kanilang mga pamilya at ng ating mga guro. The President acknowledges that efforts can be made to mitigate the risks of holding face-to-face classes, but as long as the risks are there, he believes the more prudent way forward is to hold this in abeyance for the time being.
Meanwhile, Malacanang also said that the President has refused to place the entire Philippines under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine or MGCQ until after the government kicks off its vaccination drive. Let's listen in.
Na-announce na po kagabi na ang direktiba ng Presidente ay i-hold muna ito hanggang magsimula ang pagbabakuna ng ating mga kababayan, lalo na ang ating mga essential health workers. Again, the President and the government recognizes the urgency of reopening the economy so we can resume the pre-pandemic upward trajectory and sustained growth of the economy. This, however, should be done side by side with measures that will ensure that we do not compromise efforts to contain COVID-19. And this includes the vaccination of those manning the front lines of our battle against this disease. Ang importante ngayon ay tuloy-tuloy po ang iba pang hakbang para matugunan ang mga economic concerns habang hinahanda ang pag-roll out ng mga bakuna.
Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization, startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders. to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Malaysia received its first shipment of vaccines Sunday morning, with initial doses ready to be handed by the middle of the week. More than 280,000 infections have been recorded in Malaysia, as well as 1,051 deaths.
Hari ini penghantaran pertama vaksin Pfizer BioNTech telah pun tiba dan mendarat di Malaysia sebanyak 312,390 dos. Ini adalah penghantaran yang pertama. Dan kita akan bakal menerima penghantaran yang kedua pada 26 hari bulan. Dan seterusnya, setiap 2 minggu kita akan terima sampailah kita menerima keseluruhan tempahan kita daripada Pfizer. Ini untuk Pfizer sahaja. Ini belum lagi kita umumkan vaksin-vaksin lain 27.
A Malaysia Airlines cargo aircraft bearing some 312,390 Pfizer BioNTech doses landed at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport just after 10 a.m. this morning, as officials were present to welcome the shipment's arrival. The Southeast Asian nation is planning to vaccinate at least 80% of its 32 million people, with the program covering 3 phases, starting this month before ending in February next year. Its Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin is expected to get the first jab. A second batch of Pfizer vaccines are due to arrive on the 26th, with more landing in Malaysia every 2 weeks. Malaysia has so far secured access to a supply of 66.7 million doses of various vaccines, including 32 million from Pfizer and BioNTech. The country is currently battling a virus resurgence in recent months that led to its government reimposing a lockdown with strict curbs in mid-January to stop the infection spread. Though the number of daily cases are on a general decline, Malaysia's medical authorities still report infections of about 3,000 each day, along with several deaths.
The Philippine government is asking 2 host countries to provide vaccines against COVID-19 for overseas Filipino workers as part of the agreement in relation to the deployment of health service workers, particularly nurses. International Labor Affairs Bureau, or ILAB Director Alice Vespera, said the Department of Labor and Deployment, or DOLE, Secretary Silvestre Bello III has requested the United Kingdom and Germany to provide vaccines for Filipinos displaced by the pandemic before the country sends medical workers to the 2 European nations. The country has 2 bilateral agreements with the United Kingdom in 2002 and 2003. Vespera said these agreements should be revisited and renewed to further safeguard the welfare of Filipino workers. Both UK and Germany are seeking to be exempted from the 5,000 cap on the deployment of nurses being implemented by the government to ensure there is an adequate number of nurses in the country in case the need arises.
A boat carrying dozens of Rohingya, including women and children, has broken down at sea and at least 8 people have died, a rights group and the UN Refugee Agency said on Monday. The vessel is believed to have departed Bangladesh on February 11 with 90 people on board, including 65 women and girls, Chris Lewa from the Arakan Project told AFP. but it broke down after a few days, had run out of food and water, and was now drifting in the Andaman Sea, close to India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands, said Lewa, whose group tracks Rohingya boat sailings. 6 women and 2 men are believed to have died so far, mostly from dehydration, said Lewa, whose group has been in touch with the migrants on board. The United Nations Refugee Agency confirmed that some had lost their lives. The refugee agency called for immediate action to save lives and prevent further tragedy. Members of the persecuted Muslim minority regularly try to make perilous boat crossings to Malaysia to escape vast refugee camps in Bangladesh. Rohingya are originally from mostly Buddhist Myanmar, but about 750,000 fled over the border to Bangladesh following a 2017 military crackdown and now live in the world's biggest refugee camps.
Meanwhile, Malaysia faced calls to halt the deportation of 1,200 Myanmar nationals on Navy ships to their homeland weeks after a coup with the United States, the latest to voice concerns. The migrants, who include members of vulnerable minorities, are set to be repatriated Tuesday aboard 3 vessels sent from Myanmar, where the military seized power at the start of February. The ships arrived at the weekend and docked at a naval base at Lumut on Malaysia's west coast. The U.S. Embassy in Kuala Lumpur said it had expressed concerns and urged authorities to allow the UN Refugee Agency access to the detained Myanmar nationals, which would allow them to assess if any were asylum seekers. The Refugee Agency has said at least 6 among those to be deported are registered with the body and in need of international protection, but it hasn't had access to the vast majority of them. Amy Smith, Executive Director of Fortify Rights, said that the planned deportation puts lives at risk and gives underserving legitimacy to the abusive military coup in Myanmar.
A massive cleanup operation is underway in the Indonesian city of Beksai on the eastern border of Jakarta after deadly floods submerged parts of the Indonesian capital. Authorities said 5 people were killed in the severe floods that submerged entire neighborhoods in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta, as residents returned to clean their homes and salvage belongings. National Rescue Agency spokesman Yusuf Latif said the floods were triggered by extreme downpours. Jakarta, a megalopolis that is home to around 30 million people, is frequently hit by floods in the rainy season. The city saw some of its deadliest flooding in years in January last year after downpours that also triggered landslides. At least 67 people in Jakarta and nearby cities were killed in that disaster, with the floodwaters reaching the 2nd floor of some buildings after rivers burst their banks.
In other news, 49 short-finned pilot whales have died after a mass stranding on the coast of Indonesia's Madura Island. Officials had taken samples of the carcasses for further investigation into the cause of death. Offshore cross currents in the area pose a danger to whales as they can get caught between reefs close to land. Take a look.
Mati. Mana Dek? Dua ya.
It is expected to visit areas hit by Auring in Caraga region on Tuesday to see firsthand the damage caused by the tropical storm, a palace official said. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles said Duterte will visit Caraga accompanied by some cabinet members to issue directives on what has to be done to respond to the needs of the residents there.
As of yesterday, it was reported that 29,008 families or 112,734 individuals have been affected by the typhoon. Thankfully, we do not have any casualties as of the moment. A total of 18,996 families or 69,682 individuals have been evacuated, and financial assistance has been extended to all those affected, especially to our fellow Mindanaoans in Surigao del Sur. Rest assured, government continues to closely monitor the situation, and preparedness and response measures are already in place. Ngayong araw, nakatakdang bisitahin ni Pangulong Duterte ang mga nasa lantang lugar para makita firsthand ang damage na dulot ng bagyong ito.
He also assured that local government units and concerned agencies have been responding to the situation in the region. Nograles also hailed ongoing relief, rescue, and response operations being conducted in affected areas. Reports show that Tandag River in Surigao del Sur swelled amid the onslaught of Auring, which caused flooding in parts of the province. The floodwaters were at least knee-deep in the communities with higher elevation. As of Monday, around 112,734 individuals have been affected by Auring with 0 casualties. A total of 69,682 individuals have been evacuated. Financial assistance has been extended to all those affected.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas, a 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our health outdoor
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Digitalization has benefited Filipinos, especially during the pandemic. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Jocno said on Friday in his speech during the ulat ng BSP sa Bayan, or the BSP's report to the nation, live streamed over the central bank's Facebook page. Jocno said the pandemic provided a boost to the central bank's bid to increase digital payment transactions in the country as more people prefer to use this payment mode to lessen exposure to the coronavirus disease and because of the government movement restrictions. Let's watch this.
Such indeed is the beauty of digitalization. With a gadget and an internet connection, a regular person is able to do more with a few clicks or taps anytime, anywhere. It saves that person valuable time, allowing him or her to spend it on more important matters. Digitalization is among a few things that help us continue with our daily lives during the pandemic. Imagine the risk of exposure if one had to physically pay bills and buy food, medicines, and other essential supplies. It is a good thing that the country had been gradually embracing financial technology even before the pandemic hit. For me, it prepared us for the worst. In 2020, the volume of PesoNet transfers surged to 15.3 million, up from 376% year-on-year. From January to April 2020, new online sign-ups and app downloads for digital financial services increased by 100% year-on-year. With Filipinos more mindful about their health and safety amid the lockdown, there was also a significant decline in the value o yung halaga and volume of o yung dami ng check payments and ATM withdrawals between the first half of March 2020 and from the second half of March to May 2020. The expanded role of digital payments in 2020 is worthy of note. While it kept the economic gears running during the community quarantines, it was also instrumental in distributing welfare benefits from the Social Security System's Small Business Wage Subsidy, or SBWS program. Under the SBW program, the SSS, the Department of Finance, and the Bureau of Treasury, or rather the Bureau of Internal Revenue, work hand in hand to provide a wage subsidy for affected employees of small businesses.
With the increased utilization of digital payment solutions, Jocno cited the need for a reliable and stable internet connection, which he said is a critical enabler and a necessity in the new economy. Asian markets fluctuated Tuesday, with growing optimism that the rollout of vaccines will allow the global economy to get back on track, offset by niggling worries that the recovery will fan inflation and lead to a hike in interest rates. With governments picking up the pace in their inoculation drives and infection and death rates slowing in most parts of the world, observers are predicting a surge in economic activity from the middle of the year as lockdowns are eased. The playoff between recovery and inflation worries has brought a rally in world markets to a halt in recent weeks after some had hit record or multi-year highs. The tech-rich Nasdaq tumbled more than 2% Monday, while the S&P 500 was also in the red, though the Dow eked out gains. And Asian investors trod warily. Hong Kong, Shanghai, Sydney, Singapore, and Jakarta were all up, but Seoul, Wellington, Taipei, and Manila fell. Tokyo was closed for holiday.
In other news, Malaysian police have arrested the founder of a controversial sugar daddy dating website under anti-prostitution laws after it boasted thousands of young students were using the service, according to officials. Sugarbook bills itself as a site where romance meets finance and aims to link up older men with younger women, with the men expected to provide financial support for their companions. But it sparked an uproar last week after releasing statistics purportedly showing thousands of students were using it to make money in the socially conservative country, leading one university to condemn the claims. Police said they had arrested the 34-year-old founder of the site at a Kuala Lumpur condominium, and he would appear in court. They've launched an investigation under laws aimed at combating prostitution, which is illegal in Malaysia, and misusing the internet. They didn't name him, but he's believed to be Darren Chan, whose social media profile describes him as the founder and CEO of Sugarbook. Regulators had warned against using Sugarbook, with local media reporting that it had been blocked, although the site can still be accessed on some internet providers in Malaysia and downloaded as an Android app. Founded in 2016, Sugarbook says it has expanded to countries including Singapore, Thailand, and the United States. All right, restaurant, pubs, and bars are allowed to open on March 1. Joining us live is Faye Barte from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Faye.
Yes, Alma, good afternoon to you and all the people who are watching us right now. Just want to check if you can hear me clearly, because the feed...
Loud and clear, Faye.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Alma. From the CCSA information, they are going to extend the emergency decree up to March 1, from March 1, up to March 31. So there would be extension of the emergency decree, Alma. However, the restaurants, the pubs are allowed to open. And we all know and we can remember that the zones here in Thailand are classified into colored coding zones. There are 4. The first one is red, orange, yellow, and the green. Red one is the province, a province which is classified in a red zone is only the Samut Sakhon. Samut Sakhon, where the epicenter of the outbreak started. Now, in orange zone, it means that the area or the province is actually controlled by the government officials and health officials. One of the provinces under orange zone is Bangkok. And Bangkok actually is recording very few cases. However, one of the provinces there is Pathum Thani, which is actually the health officials are monitoring and focus on that particular area, which is Pathum Thani. Now, the restaurants, the pubs are allowed to open. However, there are some difference in the time frame which they are allowed to operate. For example, Samut Sakhon, which is a red zone province, restaurants can open until 9 p.m. only. The orange zone, which is under there, is Bangkok and Pathum Thani. The restaurants can serve food and alcohol until 11 p.m. And the yellow zone, they can operate. The restaurants can operate or can serve food and alcohol until midnight. And the last one is the green zone. They can actually open the restaurants, pubs, bars, and entertainment as normal. They can open as normal, and they can do the things which is actually done in a usual basis. Alma.
It's red, orange. Next is
Yellow
yellow
and green.
and green. Okay. So
Yes.
Bangkok is under
the
orange.
provinces here, the zones are actually color coding.
Yes.
Yes, Alma.
So Bangkok is under the orange zone, and the emergency decree, just to clarify, is still extended there in Thailand.
It is
Also,
extended,
Bangkok
and according to it is actually according to CCSA that it is extended for 1 month or for 30 days, starting from March 1 up to March 31.
Okay. With the emergency decree, what anti-COVID measures are in place? Borders would still be closed, is that right?
Yes, Alma, under this emergency decree, the borders are still closed, and we need to monitor. Actually, they are actually putting the areas or provinces into red color coded zone. So they are going to monitor the provinces according to its color. So according to its by zone. So for example, Samut Sakhon is under red zone. So they are going to be controlled by the government officials and health officials strictly, and they need to follow all the necessary measures that the government will implement, because the risk and the outbreak started there, and they throw lots of cases up to now.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Faye, for your update and all those information. And you stay safe. Looking forward to more updates coming out of Bangkok and the whole country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much also, Alma. This is Faye Barte reporting live from Bangkok Talent Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
In a bid to further boost the pork supply in the country, the government is considering granting a 50% insurance subsidy for commercial hog raisers, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles said on Tuesday. The proposal was pitched during a cabinet meeting led by President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday, Nograles said in a virtual press conference. Nograles said the subsidy would be sourced from the Department of Agriculture's Quick Response Fund.
Was hit hard. Isa po dito ang karagdagang support para sa ating mga hog raisers para matugunan ang kakulangan ng supply ng pork sa merkado. One proposal being studied is an insurance subsidy of 50% for commercial hog raisers that will utilize the Quick Response Fund under the QRF of the Department of Agriculture. This is just one initiative being considered to help our hog farmers increase supplies. Another initiative that was discussed yesterday was the 2021 to 2022 National Employment Recovery Strategy, or NERS, or NERS. As most of you already know, like the rest of the world, the country's employment was hit hard by the pandemic. Unemployment peaked last April at 17.6%, or an equivalent of 7.2 million Filipinos. And while we were able to halve that to 8.7% by October of 2020, we recognize that a coherent national strategy can help create a policy environment that encourages generation of more employment and entrepreneurship opportunities. It will improve employability and productivity of our workers, and it will provide support to existing and emerging businesses.
Following the adverse impact of African swine fever on the swine industry, Senator Francis Pangilinan on February 19 called on the government to provide insurance to hog raisers. In January, Agriculture Secretary William Dar urged backyard and commercial hog raisers to avail of insurance packages to help them recover from the effects of ASF. The DA's Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation, The sole government agricultural insurance firm in the country included ASF among the risks covered by its livestock insurance as early as 2019. It grants insurance amounting to 10,000 pesos per head of swine and on a premium payment of only 2.25% or 225 pesos, according to the statement posted by DA on its official website. On the other hand, small backyard hog raisers listed in the registry system for basic sectors in agriculture are given free insurance.
Staying in the Philippines, the city government of Manila will extend financial aid to about 600 families who lost their homes during a fire incident in Parola Compound, Tondo over the weekend. Manila Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso approved on Monday a 10,000 peso financial aid for each family who lost their house because of the fire. During the regular flag raising ceremony held on Monday in Loton, Mayor Domagoso said the city government would help the victims rebuild their houses. And according to a report from the Bureau of Fire Protection, the fire started Saturday night. It was declared fire out at 6:11 a.m. on Sunday. Around 300 houses, mostly made of light materials, were destroyed by the fire, according to the BFP. 5 people died in this fire. ASEAN in Focus will be right back. Stay tuned.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Look to NHK World Japan for news of the coronavirus outbreak across the globe. You'll find updates and insights in the specialized section of our website. Catch up with programs on your schedule through the free video.
Indonesian police seized rare animals and arrested 2 men for illegally selling them online. Among the animals taken in during this operation are black kites, changeable hawk eagle, Malaccan cockatoos, and Javan langurs. Take a look.
Ini adalah kasus yang cukup memprihatinkan dalam artian kalau teman-teman bisa lihat barang bukti atau hewan yang ada di depan kita, ini harusnya hewan-hewan ini bisa hidup liar. Tapi karena modus dari pelaku untuk mencari keuntungan, ini diperdagangkan.
Mungkin kita tidak lama-lama, ya, karena beliau habis dari sini.
Let's visit this park that boasts of having its tropical coasts as the most studied in the world. Covering 52,865 hectares, this ASEAN Heritage Park is rich in biodiversity and has one of the most extensive limestone cave systems on Earth. Let's watch this video from the ASEAN Secretariat.
Thank you, Eliana, for joining me today. Always a big help. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Alma, and that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. I'm Eliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.